Today, we are going to address one of the most important questions that you may be interested in. What is the difference between orcs, goblins, Uruk-hai, and the other subsets of orcs in Middle-earth? First, we'll establish where orcs came from. There is a little bit of debate on this topic, and even Tolkien himself had multiple ideas for their origins. The most widely accepted, however, which is contained in the published Silmarillion, is that the Dark Lord Melkor kidnapped some of the earliest elves in Middle-earth and, by means of torture and his own dark power, corrupts them into the original orcs. He takes this method because no one outside of Iluvatar is able to create life himself. We know that after Melkor is imprisoned by the Valar and Sauron and his other servants are left behind in Angband, that the orcs multiply over the following period of thousands of years. The orcs are first seen in Beleriand by the elves, who did not travel to Valinor in the Year of the Trees, 1330. When Morgoth returns to Beleriand in the Year of the Trees, 1495, his orcs continued to multiply and now make up the vast majority of his forces. While we don't know how many orcs there are exactly, we know that during the 587 years of conflict in Beleriand, their numbers are easily in the hundreds of thousands. In the War of Wrath, we are told that the forces involved were uncountable, of which the majority on Morgoth's side would have been orcs. Their losses during the War of Wrath are catastrophic, and those that survive take refuge in the arid Mithrin and the mountains of what would later become the realm of Angmar. After Morgoth's downfall, the orcs of Middle-earth would serve his greatest servant, Sauron. Using the orcs, Sauron would wage war with the elves and men of the world throughout the Second Age. Now, as we arrive at the Third Age stories, we learn of the different kinds of orcs. First, we'll cover the simplest term, goblin. In short, in Tolkien's world, the term goblin is just another name for an orc. While in Peter Jackson's films, goblins seem to be smaller in stature and belong to the Misty Mountains, in Tolkien's text, goblin and orc are used interchangeably among the orcs themselves. They have terms or names for certain members of their race. A term for some of the lesser orcs, who are typically geared toward being laborers or scouts, was snog. Snog derives from a term in Black speech meaning servant or slave. In Peter Jackson's The Two Towers, this term was used for a name of one of Jedrofi's orcs. Another term we hear in The Lord of the Rings is snuffles, smaller orcs with wide nostrils who have a knack for tracking. Finally, we have a term that appears only twice in the entirety of Tolkien's writings, both coming in The Hobbit: hobgoblins. It is believed that this is just a name for a larger variation of orcs. Undoubtedly, the most well-known kind of orc that fans will be familiar with are the Uruk-hai. Unlike in the films, where they seem to be a new creation of Saruman, the Uruk-hai are actually first bred by Sauron in the late Third Age, though Saruman would also breed Uruk-hai as well. The term Uruk-hai is a combination of the Black speech word Uruk, meaning orc, and hai, meaning folk or people. So, Uruk-hai literally means orc folk or orc people. Also during this time, there was a race of trolls known as Ulog-hai, meaning troll folk. While they are known for their ferocity, their most notable trait is their apparent ability to withstand sunlight, which, as we know from The Hobbit, is typically fatal to trolls. While orcs would not turn to stone in sunlight, they would typically only endure it if they were forced to. Unlike their regular orc counterparts, the Uruk-hai could travel in sunlight without being weakened. They were also faster, stronger, smarter, and larger than regular orcs. We don't know for certain how Sauron and Saruman accomplished this, other than the likely use of their dark arts. Treebeard wonders aloud to the hobbits if the orcs had somehow been improved, or if they were men who had been corrupted to have orc-like qualities, or worse yet, if they were somehow a mixture of orcs and men. Whatever their origins, the Uruks of Mordor and Isengard are some of the fiercest and most dangerous combatants in the War of the Ring. In the Tower of Cirith Ungol, we see how the powerful Uruks of Mordor look down upon and command the lesser regular orcs. A snarl followed by a blow and a cry sent him darting back into hiding. An Uruk voice rose in anger, and he knew it again at once. Harsh, brutal, cold. It was Shagrat speaking, captain of the tower. "You won't go again, you say? Curse you, Snaga, you little maggot. If you think I'm so damaged that it's safe to flout me, you're mistaken. Come here and I'll squeeze your eyes out like I did the Radbag just now. And when some new lads come, I'll deal with you. I'll send you to Shelob."
Unfortunately, when it comes to Saruman, his deeds don't stop at just creating Uruk-hai, as Treebeard alluded to. There certainly was some sort of devilry of Saruman happening in the caverns of Isengard, as there are two more variations of orcs which he brings about, half-orcs and Goblin-men. Half-orcs were actually large evil men who possessed orcish features. These half-orcs were among the Dunlendings who served Saruman in the Battle of the Hornburg, where most were destroyed. Those that remained were among those who went into exile after Saruman's defeat and became the ruffians who took over the Shire before they were ousted by the returning hobbits. Another possible example of a half-orc is the Squint-Eyed Southerner, one of Saruman's agents stationed near the Shire who would eventually turn into an informant of the Nazgul. As for Goblin-men, while they are listed separate from half-orcs, they were very similar to them. They too had a resistance to sunlight and fought in the Battle of the Hornburg. Now we finally arrive at the natural question: how did Saruman create half-orcs and Goblin-men? For the likely answer, we turn to History of Middle-earth, Volume 10, Morgoth's Ring. It became clear in time that undoubted men could, under the domination of Morgoth or his agents, in a few generations, be reduced to almost orc level of mind and habits, and then they would, or could, be made to mate with orcs, producing new breeds, often larger and cunning. There is no doubt that long afterwards, in the Third Age, Saruman rediscovered this, or learned of it in law, and in his lust for mastery committed this his wickedest deed: the interbreeding of orcs and men, producing both men-orcs, large and cunning, and Auk-men, treacherous and vile. Now, it's probably best we don't dwell too long on the implications of this, aside to note that there was clearly no level that Morgoth, Sauron, and Saruman would not go to in order to obtain an advantage in their war against the Free Peoples. From their initial creation by Morgoth to their later variations of Sauron and Saruman, the orcs of Middle-earth were bred for a single purpose: to serve the dark powers in their wars against the men, elves, and dwarves of Middle-earth. To close, I'll pose a question which Tolkien himself struggled with in his later life. Are the orcs irredeemable? We know other races of Middle-earth, the Easterlings for example, were not wholly evil, and there were likely those who would oppose Sauron rather than serve him. But what about the orcs? Are they creatures evil to the core? This is a topic made for great discussion, and I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for being with us this far in the video and for subscribing to our channel.